Hey, Alastair, thank you for coming in. You really have a wonderful background of giving and abundance and service and thoughtful contribution, and it's continuing. Just remarkable. And thank you for coming in and sharing your experiences with my audience.
Thank you so much, Stephen. Really nice to see you again. And thank you for the invitation to join me today.
So the first question is, you do have this wonderful professional and personal story arc, and it's continuing because you're so young yet. So it's going to continue. But what were the inflection points that made this outstanding, wonderful person you are today? And it could have been when you're 3 or 5 years old. It could have been when you're 10, inside, outside the family. It could have been career moves. In fact, I recently did an interview with this serial CEO of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world, and he said it was actually taking a paper when he was like 11 or something, right? So, and that shaped, and a mother had just gotten divorced. And so, and they were challenged in terms of finances. So, he had to kind of go out there and help out, right? So it could be anything, either challenges or opportunities or mentors. What were those three magic moments in your life that made this outstanding person you are today?
Well, that's really kind. Thank you for your nice words. I probably had sort of three main sort of milestones that I can sort of think of. And it's a wonderful question because it makes me sort of think quite deeply about the life I've enjoyed so far. But yeah, probably when the first sort of milestone I had was as a boy growing up in the south of England. I was very keen on sailing and did dinghy sailing in the south coast of a beautiful natural harbour called Chichester Harbour. So sailing every day of my life, and it was through that where I had the fortune to have one of my first mentors, who is Peter Blake, and he was the world's greatest yachtsman. He won the America's Cup a couple of times for Team New Zealand. He then went on to do extraordinary work around the world with his ocean conservation and sustainability work. And it was through his mentorship that I realized, well, he actually said in his book that we shouldn't simply condemn, but we should try and find solutions to problems around the world. And sustainability is a key element to that. And so for me, I remembered those words when I was at university and did a yacht design degree. And I wanted to prove a point to the world. You can have eco luxury. You can have sustainability within the yachting industry. This was back in 2008, 2009. And I remembered his mentorship and his words then that we need to provide solutions. So I went on to win 3 international design awards for sustainability, for excellence and innovation, and for yacht design. For a design, those who are watching can see above me. It's a super green super yacht above here. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, that's really, really interesting. So when you were very young, you had this passion for sailing, and then you happened to have somebody enter your life who's like famous in this area, but also had a mentality and a kind of an ethos of giving and sustainability and doing something that's positive, right? And that led you then to take even a degree in design and in the yacht area. And then when you entered into this in a professional basis, you then really were sort of focused on that, and even to the point of winning innovation awards and sustainability awards and more. And you've built a really successful business as well. So you're a young man, you're really interested in sailing, you get mentored, you get your degree, and then you graduate. Now, can we talk about your professional experience after that and in your personal experience leading up to where you are today?
Sure. Yeah, yeah. Um, I suppose I do you want me to mention about the other milestones at this point, or should we come back to that once we've discussed the next stage?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. So there's other inflection points.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wasn't very clear.
Let's continue with the inflection
Yeah,
points, and then we'll pick up on this. Yeah.
yeah. So yes, that's the first inflection point and mentor in my life was Peter Blake, which was one of the reasons I went on to do a sustainable design project. The other mentor that I definitely cite is about 5 years ago, I had the good fortune to be invited by one of my mentors to their private island in the Caribbean. And it was during this stay when I was in the Caribbean that they encouraged me to write my own eulogy. And it's quite a morbid process and quite emotional process, but one that I've certainly realized the importance of and encourage others to do so if they haven't already. And it was in that process, we were discussing it with my mentor, and they said, so what do you want to achieve by the time you're 100 years old? What do you want to do, therefore, in the next 20 years, the next 10 years, 6 months, and tomorrow, in order to achieve that end objective to be what you want to be remembered for? And so for me, for Alistair, that whole eulogy has boiled down to one word. And so since the sort of last 5 years or so, I put a lot of energy into that one word, which is philanthropy. And so what's been really rewarding is now, again, through being mentored, how do I connect my world of the super yacht industry, 20 years of trusted relationships with yacht owners, charter vacation clients, and those that enjoy yachting, ultimately the high net worth individual. But then how do I connect them to my passion, my why in life, which is philanthropy? And so we sat down and we chatted and we realized, well, why don't you combine the two? And so it's been such a rewarding process where now I'm able to host some of my clients and others in my network, whether it's on board a yacht or at St. James's Palace in London in aid of the Queen's Commonwealth Trust, or for lunch at the United Nations as part of my work as a United Nations Foundation advisor, and various other charities and causes, whether it's anti-human trafficking, ocean conservation, and all these other important issues around the world. And it's just a moment for me where I realized I could combine my career that I've enjoyed immensely, but also sort of join the dots, if you like, to my real passion in life, which is philanthropy. So that's been a really rewarding process, and a milestone for me was indeed that moment when I was able to write my own eulogy.
So before we get to your third inflection point, let me kind of reflect what you're saying. Then you have this mentor, and you go to this private retreat, and the mentor says, "Well, look, reflect what your life is going to be when you're 100 years old." And then, like you said, it's a eulogy. How are you going to be remembered, basically, right? And then you wanted philanthropy as being a big part of that, right? And then break that down and what are you going to do every day, every week, every 6 months, every year to ultimately lead to that goal. It's kind of like this idea of framing. There's this kind of principle of framing where you frame different elements of your life to reach this end goal. And because I used to teach logic when I was younger, I used to teach mathematics and logic and computing, plus I taught business at the same time. There's a concept called stepwise refinement. So if you have a big problem, you break it up into these little micro steps to achieve that end goal. But in essence, that's what you're doing through framing, or that's what you're doing by writing the eulogy and looking back. You're breaking it down to what are the kind of the stepwise moments in your life that can ultimately achieve how you're going to be remembered. So I think that's pretty profound. It's a great lesson and a message for the audience. Um, Now, what's your third inflection point?
Yeah, thank you. I suppose it's a very personal one. To to reflect back so far, I've just thoroughly enjoyed becoming a dad, becoming a father. I've got two beautiful little ones, and they've sort of really given me another focus, and to also sort of realize that we're only on the planet for such a short time. What can we do to help the next generation? And I've always been, I think, philanthropic, and certainly looking after the planet is so important through sustainability and all these other important topics. The Sustainable Development Goals, not least, is something very close to my heart. But since becoming a dad, I've realized, hey, I've got to do all I can to support that green agenda. And I suppose one area particularly important to my personal and professional life is the 14th Sustainable Development Goal, which is life above and below the waterline. And so I think becoming a dad has really focused my energy and really made me realize, how do I make this ripple effect? How do I support maybe it's those kids that need an education out of poverty. It's those children that are being trafficked. It's the ocean that we need to protect for the next generation. It's all these sorts of topics that now I'm sort of really focused on, I think, since becoming a dad and wanting to leave the planet in a better place than we found it.
So what you're saying is that, becoming a parent has made you really aware of the other, and the other being your children and the planet and what is going to be inherited by the next generation. And so you're now very mindful of above water, below water, and everywhere else, and some of which is contained in the Sustainable Development Goals, but really in ESG principles and things like that. And how could be mindful and thoughtful and leaving a better planet. But you also indicated that because you have a limited time, but I believe that you are young enough that you're going to now have perpetual lifespan. So aging will be solved, and there's a
Mhm.
lot of work going on around the world where you will now be a contemporary with your kids and their kids forever, if you wish. So you're living the planet for yourself as well, and to
Yeah.
future generations, because you'll be contemporaries with them. Um, so I wanted to inject that and maybe get your reflection upon that, and then we'll go to the question about what were the other progressions in your professional personal life.
Yeah. I think it's a really interesting area. I don't know enough about personally, but some of my clients are very much involved in the longevity world, whether it's through their medical profession or their impact investment space. There are more and more topics of conversation over dinner or on a client's yacht or in their office or at their home when I'm invited to meet with them. The topic of conversation is around longevity, and it is around wellness, and it's not just anti-aging but reverse aging. It's quite an interesting topic, which I look forward to learning more about from world experts.
Yeah, and then you have people like Kurzweil and this idea of a singularity and the hybrids, and we're going to merge with intelligence, and then again you can be like a perpetual being, right? And he's not talking a long time from now. He's seeing this in the near term, and or maybe even being embodied in some kind of robot, perhaps, or something like that. Anyways, that's we can explore that a little bit later in the discussion. But so you talked about this aspect of being mentored, having this passion for sailing, and being, sort of planning your future. That was kind of one question, but another question is making sure there's sustainability in that future, and you end up getting into design and winning competitions, and even studying this formally. So once you finished school and you got into this on a professional basis, what were the next sort of milestones in a chronological order leading to where you are today?
Thank you. I started my first business in 2008. That was sort of simultaneously with ending my time at university in England. Um, I worked for different shipyards, one in England and one in Italy, and that's was a great way to get into yachting, was to design yachts. So I thoroughly enjoyed seeing some of my designs come out and be built. It's the closest thing to having a child being born before you become a dad. I think when you see your own designs get made and used, which is fun. So yeah, I did some design work, and then after promoting the design above me, which is a 190-foot concept, it's a 58-meter concept. I promoted Soliloquy, the super green super yacht, and so she's propelled from the sun and the wind. She's zero emission, and I tried to prove a point to the world: you can have eco luxury zero emission and therefore have the most luxurious item on the planet, but without causing any detrimental environmental impact. And so I've enjoyed speaking around the world with different topics of conversation about conferences on the future of yachting, sustainability, ocean conferences, and other things about the subject of sustainability in yachting. And indeed, I chat to clients about that quite regularly today, whether they own a yacht or are chartering a yacht for a vacation. And so that's how I got into yachting. And then I moved to the States. So I'm originally from England, and I moved to Florida in 2011. And I was doing some design work for a little while, and then also the marketing of an Italian yacht builder. Before I moved in and I pivoted towards the yacht sales and charter vacation side of the market. And so for the last 15 years, I suppose, I've been in a role of a super yacht advisor, helping clients go on experiential, extraordinary trips with their loved ones, multi-generational family vacations or retreats for family offices or companies. And then indeed, a few of my clients like to then think about ownership of a yacht after falling in love with that lifestyle. And so I've helped with over 40 super yacht sales, from a couple of million to north of $300 million on the second-hand market. And then on the new build side, it depends on the complexity and the size of the yachts, but our company have been involved with some of the largest projects ever built. So yeah, that's sort of been the trajectory from sort of starting out as a young yacht designer, winning a few international awards, and then I use that sort of background every day when chatting with clients. It's been thoroughly rewarding, and I always say I'm in the relationship business, which is really rewarding to build these relationships with clients. Some of whom have been for many years, and now their kids become my clients. They're going on their honeymoons and their family holidays. So yeah, it's been a really enjoyable journey, and now I'm enjoying the other area of my passion with combining those relationships with my philanthropic work.
So let me see if I can summarize what you're doing then. You have a component which is all about experience. So you can design boutique experiences or unique experiences for people. And you can also, based on those experiences, they may think, you know what, I want one. So you can get into the used uh, or other pre-owned, let's call them pre-owned yachts that maybe somebody's trying to sell, and you have people who'll be willing to do that. And you can get into, you're in the market where people want something very unique and designed from the ground up. When you do that, do you outsource that or you still get your hand into the design?
Yeah, great question. I'm more of an advisor role. So I have some great relationships across the yacht industry. Um, Given my yacht design background, I can advise clients to a point, but I then do like to collaborate. So I'll be able to introduce a client to a design studio anywhere in the world who would be a potential candidate to do the custom yacht design. And then we, guide the client from A to Z of the whole process, support them when it comes to the design work. Then we tender the design out for different shipyards. Our team in the yacht management company, which is the parent company of Moravia Yachting, they're called Bill Robinson. Then they'll come in and help guide the client when it comes to building the yacht, making sure it's on time, on budget, and the highest quality possible from each shipyard, respectively. And then, of course, given that we're the leader in yacht management, which is like property management for yachts, we can then guide the owner on recruitment of their crew, the provisioning of the yacht, the compliance, the tax and flagging and all those other aspects of owning a yacht, indeed through their whole life cycle to one day potentially selling the yacht and building another yacht. So we can guide them accordingly.
So let's say an owner or a person desires to have a yacht designed, and then you work with the best design houses in the world. You can advise them through that process, and then you tender it out to the best shipyards in the world, and there's constant hand touch and kind of through the process. And now the owner has a yacht, but they're not using that yacht all the time. So I guess they would lease it then, or and then you also manage help with the management of that yacht. So that would be when it's not used. Maybe it could be leased to others. The maintenance of that yacht, making sure that the crew is, you can help them find the proper crew for this and things like that. So the entire management of that entity, which is a significant investment, right? Did I
Yes,
miss
yeah.
anything in there, or?
That's absolutely correct. All the above. So, in other words, we're one of the very few full service 360 super yacht companies. We can help in their first step on board a yacht, whether that's a yacht vacation in the price point of a ski trip, right up to $4 million a week on the yacht vacation world. But then, of course, if people want to go into the ownership side, we're world experts to help with the purchase, the sale, a new build, and then, of course, the management. And as you say, we look after and advise every aspect of ownership of a yacht, and then it allows the owner to enjoy their yacht without any of the worry or the work that goes involved. Because, of course, some of these large yachts that have 50, 60 full-time crews, a mini business in itself. And so there's a lot of logistics to be organized, and that's what we do best.
This is just a point of curiosity. So let's say somebody has a $1 billion yacht, because it's like a round number, right? And what would be the ongoing cost to maintain that yacht and crew and things like that? Is like 20% of that 1 billion, 5% or something? I mean, it's got to be some kind of percentage of that total figure, right?
Yeah, so as a general rule of thumb, of course, there are so many variants, and it depends on so many different factors. But as a quick sort of rule of thumb, I tend to say about 10% of the value of the yacht it will cost you to run the yacht each year. So for easy numbers, say it's a $100 million yacht, it costs you about $10 million to look after, maintain, fully crew it. But of course, if you want to do a circumnavigation of the globe, you'll be burning a lot more fuel than if you sit idly in the harbor not doing anything. So there's so many variables involved, and that's just the fuel cost. And that's before you think about the maintenance. Every 5 years, you do sort of major ticket items. But of course, what you touched upon earlier is the charter management, which helps offset the running costs for an owner. And so my colleagues in the charter management division will help be able to generate a revenue for the owner. And if you charter out your yacht about 10 times a year, you'll be coming close to offsetting your running costs as again, a rule of thumb. So some of our clients like to put their yachts on the charter market. Others like to keep their yacht totally private, so it's a home from home. But a sort of very quick summary is, there's a few thousand yachts on the charter vacation market all over the globe, from the Galapagos to Southeast Asia, the Caribbean, and Mediterranean, etc. So there's lots of places you can rent a yacht for a vacation. But if you're owning a yacht, you can choose whether or not you want to offset that running cost through a charter management program.
And then again, just another point of curiosity. What's the biggest yacht in the world, and how much does it cost?
So the largest yacht in the world currently is 180 meters, which I think is 580 feet. So a very large yacht by length. And very big, another very large yacht by gross tonnage, which is probably more accurate way of describing the size of a yacht, which is a bit like square footage of a real estate building. We use gross tonnage as a volume measurement of a yacht. And one of the largest yachts is called Dilbar. That's a very large yacht in the yacht industry. So by gross tonnage, she's arguably, I think, still the largest yacht.
And what would be the ticket price for something of that size?
Yeah, it's I suppose how long's a piece of string? Again, we could use general rules of thumb, a million a meter. But then again, depends totally on the outfitting, the interior, the AV, and all the technology involved. Safe to say some yachts are built of a similar length for a fraction of the price of others. It just totally depends on the builder, the quality, and yes, the fixtures and finishings within the yacht itself.
Okay, now let's vector off into your philanthropic work and can you describe some of the early philanthropic work and then your journey in the philanthropy side to where you are today? So, maybe some of the early projects and how that advised you into subsequent projects and causes, and now it's forming you today, and then where you wish that side of you to go into the future.
Yeah, thank you. I suppose one of the earlier projects that I got involved with was when I was quite young, designing a yacht for the option of having a quadriplegic be able to sail the yacht themselves. I met with one of our greatest yachtsmen in England called Jeff Holt. He's quadriplegic, incredible yachtsman. He sailed around the United Kingdom. He sailed a transatlantic by himself. And we chatted, and I designed a concept yacht for him. And I think through that, we then realized I have a lot of passion to support different charities. And then I got involved with Sailability, which is one of the charities that he helped start up. Also, his other charity called Wet Wheels, which allowed people who are in a wheelchair to get on board boats and enjoy the water and get out of doors. And so I suppose that's one of the earlier charities that I got involved with long before sort of graduating. But then, yes, through the years, it's particularly the inflation and different charities that I'm thrilled to be a part of and helping to advise and connect the dots again. So one is a charity called the Queen's Commonwealth Trust in London. They do extraordinary work around the world, around the Commonwealth. Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II set up this charity in 2018, and they find extraordinary young social entrepreneurs around the world and go in to give them support, advice, help, whether it's fiscal or legal or other things, but basically to help ensure that a great charity becomes sustainable. Because obviously every fledgling charity has its hiccups along the way. And so it's wonderful when they find these extraordinary young social entrepreneurs. One example is someone that was flown in from Zambia on board one of our yachts, this yacht behind me called Eternity. She's 65 meters, 213 feet. And we flew in this young social entrepreneur who founded a charity that so far has saved 13,000 kids from being trafficked. The most extraordinary charity in Zambia. They're doing so much. And it's so rewarding when I can fill a room, whether it's a yacht or a room in a palace, or a room in United Nations, and bring the philanthropists, the donors, and those that want to support great people, great young social entrepreneurs or charities, and off they go and do some great things together. So that's one example. And it's very harrowing because this extraordinary person who's founded this charity, she herself was trafficked by her own father. So it's the most awful hell on earth that she was in. But for her to then escape and then set up this charity has really allowed her to save so many. And so I love to support those types of charities. There's another charity in India and Kenya and Uganda. They help for less than one child, for less than $1 per child for a whole year. They can provide an education. And of course, it's that ripple effect again, where yes, you're supporting one child, but if they're coming out as a doctor or an architect after the graduation when they're older, you're then also lifting that whole family and generationally that family out of poverty. And so what I love to do is to really look at the sort of bigger picture, perhaps the holistic approach where you teach someone to fish, you don't just give them a fish to eat. And I think that sort of sustainable model works really well. I've also been pleased to support various anti-human trafficking organizations and charities. Some are doing wonderful work, again, to support in those areas. And yeah, the list goes on. Often I find just through conversation, I'll meet a client who maybe charters a yacht for a couple of times, and through the relationship, I've realized they've got their own family foundation. And so then I can invite some of my other clients to their fundraisers, which I'm doing tomorrow, actually. I've been invited to Washington, D.C. and to the Senate, where I'm coming to support a charity to help opioid addiction, to help stop opioid addiction and to help with teenagers. So it's those types of conversations. I love to, again, join the dots and do what I can because philanthropists are not agnostic to one charity or one cause. It's really fun when I can meet somebody at an ocean conservation charity event, but then invite them to the United Nations the next time. And I can help multiply and support different organizations and causes just through these relationships.
Because you're such a, you've got this really great history of impact and sustainability, but also you're amongst the best in the world, if not the best in the world in the yacht space. And people in that space, a lot of them have financial capability, but they also have sustainability in their mindset and so on. So you'll then get invites, right? I'm hosting this event. And by the way, do you know of anybody else who'd be interested in supporting this or something like that, right? And so you must get a constant influx of people saying, you know what, Alistair, I need your help. How do you manage that?
That's fine. I suppose I do. The other day, I suppose it's a year ago now, but one of my clients told me, he said, Alistair, you're a super connector. And I love that phrase, but it's probably quite accurate. I love to super connect, and I'm always thinking about who could I introduce this person to? What person could help with their impact investment or their for-profit organization? So it's not just on the non-profit, it's not just philanthropy, it's not just for profit. I sort of have a web of connections across the globe, and I love to support and help wherever I can. And I feel like that's one of the most rewarding parts of my day when I can introduce one philanthropist to another. They're both trying to end human trafficking in different parts of the world. Then off they go and share best practices and multiply the good. So it's a real sort of force for good for the entrepreneur who wants to give back. And I just help facilitate those introductions. I don't know how or why, but it's just the way my brain and my memory work. I can sort of pluck names and people out of my past to then help support each other going forward that people would otherwise never have met. But I'm in this unique seat and privileged seat where I get to build these trusted relationships with the yachting enthusiasts from so many diverse different industries, different backgrounds, different regions. And it's really fun when I can put them together and I can go and see and off they go and do some great philanthropic work or impact investment work together.
Yeah, and you must be networking with those in India, like
Yes, yeah, I've got a few charities I've supported. Actually, one is that charity I mentioned earlier where um, they lift children out of poverty by providing education with the Indian government and Kenyan government. So they're doing great work.
yeah, I mean James Mwangi, I mean he's based out of Kenya, so and he's the chair of Equity Holdings, which then underneath that is Equity Bank. So he'd be a great
Mhm.
one to interface with. But I've got a good friend in India. His name is Chaka Valiappa, and his family were the merchant bankers when Britain was developing India, and then they created some of the biggest companies. They created the first tech park to bring all the big tech into India in the 1990s. They've created a bunch of private colleges, things like that, and very, very connected. And in fact, and we talked about this in our interview, but I believe he talked about where Gandhi was in their ancestral home as a lawyer, came in and he came out as Gandhi, right? Because
Wow.
he was a
Mm,
friend and things like that. So
mm.
um, afterwards, maybe in July, if you're interested, just ping me with some of the names, and then I could just do connections and do introductions. They'll be trusted
Thank you.
introductions, right? So
Yeah, no, that'd be wonderful, and I'd love to learn how I can support them and their nonprofits, foundations, and join the dots because there are always synergies. I maybe it's a little gift I've got, but I'm always able to connect people. And by the sounds of it, you've got a encyclopedic memory. It's amazing. So it's fun when you can think of people to connect people, other people to, and I enjoy that too.
yeah, I just finished just before this interview. I just finished interviewing Audrey Dunn, and she's created a series of private communities called the Vine um, Global Impact Network. It's and and now she's converting that into an AI-enabled platform called Zero AI. And what you're doing would fit what she's doing. The only thing is, right now, she's got so many things going. I'll wait till things a little bit settle, but maybe you would definitely fit the Zero AI platform she's creating. She's got countries interested in using it. She's got some of the greatest conferences interested in using it. She definitely has the ultra high net worth communities interested in supporting and using it, which would fit your community as well, right? By using AI to be an enabler, and the team she's built is world class for developing the AI, and it has capabilities that even countries can't do in this way, right? So, and she's well on that journey, and you can join her community and then create sub communities within her AI platform. They're doing a beta with 4 million people. That'll be later on this year, and then she'll be embedding some more countries next year into this thing. But this platform, I shouldn't call it a thing. It's just an amazing platform called Zero AI, and you would definitely fit, and it would manage some of the things that you're doing because you can put entire communities within it, and then you can isolate that as your own little circle community within this bigger platform, and you can control how it works, right? And and it'll automatically do introductions and things like that through the AI, and at a very granular level, understanding the people in our community. So um, that would fit. There's the World Food Program would fit. Their amazing AI for Good would fit, et cetera, et cetera. But let's keep the conversation going. But you know what? I spent quite a bit of time just sort of like a brainstorm. Let's get back to
Mhm.
the interview itself. Um, are you part of any of these organizations then that I mentioned, not EO or YPO or Tiger? You said no, right? So they would definitely work well if you're investigated to see. I mean, they will work well in every part of what you do, with your business to, your philanthropic work, working with the UN, in your speaking. I mean, you name it, every aspect. They're private and very, very, very private, but the people in them are just amazing. So.
Thank you.
You've done speaking and you're doing things with the UN. Can you talk about some of the work with the UN and in more detail, kind of get more granular of what you're doing with the UN?
Yeah, so I am just an advisor, an introducer really to the United Nations Foundation. And so the foundation was set up by Ted Turner originally, and basically the UN Foundation is there to support the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs,
Right.
and our efforts have been where the Hill Robinson Group, which is the company that I work for, I run the Americas region for their sales and charter location sub business called Moravia Yachting. And as a group, the CEO and owner of the company has generously given to donate to the United Nations Foundation over the years. And through that, I got involved, and it's great now where, again, I'm just facilitating an introduction, really. So I open my network of yachting enthusiasts, and I'll invite them to a lunch gathering at the United Nations in New York. We'll hear from the extraordinary work of the United Nations Foundation. The last year we're specifically doing a campaign awareness for healthcare for children refugees. And so that was the campaign with Shot at Life, which is a charity within the United Nations Foundation. And what's wonderful is sometimes serendipity happens where I've invited some trusted clients and people in my network to this lunch I mentioned in aid of children refugees. And after, sending out my invitations, one of my contacts said, "Thank you so much. I'd love to come." And then he mentioned, "Did you know that I am a child refugee?"
Wow.
And it's just extraordinary. And it's such a moment in life where I genuinely had no idea. And then when you hear these extraordinary coincidences, then of course he came to my event, to the lunch, chatted with others in the room and to the United Nations Foundation directly. And of course, it's very powerful when you know that a child refugee who's had a successful, extremely successful American dream coming over to the States is now able to directly give back through an introduction and a curated event that I've put together. So sometimes it's completely by chance that these moments happen, and those are the ones I remember vividly, and those are the ones I really enjoy when you can join these dots, and sometimes it really is extremely poignant and very curated and relevant to the people I can get in the room.
I mean, that's a profound story, and it's continuing to evolve, right? Because of the work. You also are involved with something called Entrepreneurs Impacting Change. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so that was a conference a couple of years ago. I was invited to speak at. So let's think. I'm a honorary advisor to the United Nations NGO Committee on Sustainable Development. It's a bit of a mouthful, but essentially, I've been speaking at their events over the years for ocean conservation and my expertise in sustainability and yachting. And so I speak about my design work and other areas around sustainability in the marine world. And they then hosted another event at the United Nations in Manhattan, where I spoke about entrepreneurs impacting the change was the topic of conversation, where I gave them a 5-minute summary of what we've been discussing today, just sort of summarizing where if you put your mind's eye to it, one can put their trusted relationships through their career and then combine the dots into philanthropy, impact, and making a change for good. So that's what I spoke about at that conference.
I mean, you do quite a bit with media too. Like you've been featured in the New York Times, Financial Times, CNN, Sunday Times, The Telegraph, etc. So, I mean, that must be like a dream come true, right? I mean, these are some, the major media groups in the world, and they reach out and say, "Hey, Alastair, we want you to come in and talk about what you do," right?
It's extremely humbling, that's for sure. And quite a few of those organizations approached me when I was just sort of starting my career in yachting back in 2009, 2010, I suppose. And so, yeah, it's quite special when one gets interviewed by Financial Times and other institutions that you read growing up. But I don't think I ever imagined I'd be included in their features. So it's been a fantastic journey and one I've thoroughly enjoyed, and continue to talk about sustainability and yachting at different events around the world. And now I'm doing more and more advice on the philanthropic side, which is just a passion project that I've again enjoyed a lot over the years.
Do you ever consider writing a book, or have you written some books, or is that in your future?
It's maybe in my future. I've not ever written a book, but yeah, it'd be fun to maybe put pen to paper one day. Maybe I'll come back to you and talk to you about AI and helping to write books.
Well, I mean, you're so embedded in all the different facets of the yachting business, but also on the philanthropic side. You already talked of the Queen's Commonwealth Trust and working with the United Nations Foundation, and you're all these other nonprofits, and uh, being awarded in different ways as well as recognition for all of your work. Is there an area that we haven't covered yet that you want to spotlight? So that's one of the last questions. I have maybe a couple of more.
Yeah, thank you. I suppose we covered so much. I've really enjoyed our conversation. I suppose the sort of main message is if ever I can connect the dots and help with the non-profit world, it's always a pleasure to do so. And would enjoy meeting other philanthropists that want to support extraordinary organizations helping to make generational change around the world.
So, I mean, it's just a fascinating arc, right? Both on the professional and the personal side. As is there questions you want to leave the audience as something that, they should be pondering as they leave this interview, and are there? So that's one question. And the other final question is, what are other recommendations you want to leave the audience? So,
Yeah, thank you. Two big questions I haven't prepared an answer for, but I suppose I think one question is, what's your why in life, and what's your life going to be remembered for long after you depart? And I think if you don't know that answer yet, I would really encourage everybody to go through that process of writing your own eulogy. Very powerful. It's very meaningful, and it really sort of gives you that helicopter view of your life. And I think it's so uh, helpful when you're then discussing, what do you want to achieve by the end of your days? And for me, I didn't know any of that really until going through that exercise and that process. And then, it might result in bigger impact, bigger change, and certainly much more focus on what your passions are and what your specific energies are. So yeah, I challenge everyone to write their own eulogy, and please get in touch when you've gone through the process to let me know how that's impacted you and your families.
so that's a question and a recommendation. Do you have an additional recommendation, or you would close with that thought?
I think I'll close with that thought.
Okay. Now let's say in my audience there's somebody who's working on a notable cause, and they want to reach you. Do they do that through LinkedIn, or you may get so much inbound that you don't want people reaching out to you, right?
Well, thank you. Yeah, I always love to connect. It's always fun to meet new people and see where I can add value. You can easily find me on LinkedIn. My name's Alastair Callender. I also have a contact card with a summary of different areas of my expertise and the different charities I'm involved with, both on the for-profit and the non-profit side. That's contact the yacht taylor.com. But as I say, a quick Google, you'll be able to find me somewhere.
Yeah, and for that matter, because my audience is also tech people, and of course, some of the most successful companies in the world are tech, right? So maybe they'll ask you to do a yacht design or something, or help them with their yacht purchase, or et cetera, or some kind of yachting experience. So, Alistair, thank you for coming in. It was a delightful. doing such wonderful work. It's a great story from the beginning in your passion to being mentored to winning design contests to building, designing, helping with experiences to all of your philanthropic work. I could see books coming up, and maybe they'll do a TV series on you, like a Netflix series, right? Alastair, a life or a day-to-day, week-to-week life of Alastair, right? So,
Well, thank you so much for having me today. I've really enjoyed our conversation and good to see you again. Yeah, I look forward to staying in touch and supporting you and your network wherever I can in the future.
so thank you again.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.